I'd like to welcome for a fireside chat Mr. Vikas Gupta, who is the Talent Acquisition Head of the APAC region and partner at Deloitte India. Mr. Vikas Gupta is a human resource evangelist with more than 2 decades of experience in driving people strategy across diverse industries. He's very enthusiastic about the future of HR to meet the needs of brave new world of work. He's interested in technology, higher education, research, and classic melodies. He's also an active member of several industry bodies and often speaks at various industry and academic events. He currently helps catalyze growth by leading change and creating avenues to position the brand of Deloitte internally and in the marketplace. We welcome Vikas for this conversation this evening.
So Chahat, can I make a request up front? Easy questions, please.
So I think that's generous because I think the amount of experience that you bring onto the table is exciting, and we are all looking forward to this conversation. I think the students in the morning when I was having a discussion that we would be hosting you as part of this HR conversation this evening. I think many of them at the back from the MBA cohort are very much interested listening to you.
So guys, hope a little bit of a cheer for me. Show me you're still alive. Yeah, awesome. Awesome.
So Vikas, we have seen you as an active HR evangelist in the industry for for more than 2 decades now. Dealing with humans is not an easy job. And you have been dealing with numerous humans all over across, spanning more than 2 decades now across several industries, and especially now at Deloitte. With these challenges and the evolving landscape of the industry as well as higher education, did you ever feel like changing your route?
All the time. And I'll tell you why. So very fortunate to graduate from my MBA school. Just about a few years down the line when Indian economy started to open up. So those of you who still remember, this was somewhere around year 91 when Indian economy started to open up a little bit. And there were 2 professions which were changing rapidly. One was the IT industry, which was growing up significantly. The issues of Y2K, creation of ERPs, and so on and so forth was at core and forefront of everything what was happening in India at that point in time. And all of that was powered by the telecom revolution, which was also coming into the country. So I seen 2 kinds of people changing profession at that point in time. One was people from the operations and manufacturing background becoming technologists. And 2, I've seen a lot of armed forces professionals who post their early retirements or post-retirements were taking up jobs in telecom companies. And here I am, newly minted management graduate, who's just stepped into the profession and experiencing all of this change. And I said, hey, can I change now? Or should I continue with what I'm doing right now because it's so very fascinating to manage that particular change? So those thoughts did cross my mind. I did explore at some stage being a marketing professional. But that said, no, I've not had that opportunity to make a change. But that said, will I do it now? No.
I think you've been enjoying your stint at Deloitte, and we have all been following your journey very closely. And quite interesting, on your LinkedIn bio, you have mentioned that I'm excited about the future of human resources to meet the needs of a brave new world of work. So we, through this forum, are focusing on something similar on the theme of fostering next-gen learners with a vision of 2035. Could you please give us an insight? And this question is especially for the student body here. What they should be doing in order to align themselves with the future needs of creating that learner-centric education? How should they be working on that?
So I'll leave you with a big thought or a big picture for you to think about. I'm sure this would have come up many times in the conversation. So like I said, we're back in 91 when Indian economy started to open up. There were opportunities which emerged. I think today's India is at a cusp of a very big change which is ahead of us. And the opportunity which you are sitting on is humongous. As much as you say that, no, hey, I'm one amongst the 1.4 billion which exist in this country, but come to think about it, you're pretty much like 20% of the world's population. And how do you take advantage of that? So that's at one level. The second level, what I'll say to you is aligned to some of the lingos you guys speak, right? So if I kind of keep it at your level and think about, for you to think about what I'm going to say, I want you to be a scamper. Scamper in a nice way. And for you to think about scamp, what do I mean by that? I'm sure you've heard this many a times in the conversation. Somebody earlier spoke about purple skills and my ears went up. That's something what Deloitte work is all about. But that being said, I'll stick to core. So S in scamper, I would ask you to think about is all about skills. How do you focus on skills which are relevant for today and stay focused on today? Once you master that art, you graduate to next. And for you to master that art, you would say, hey, do I spend like 10,000 hours in doing that? I'm not saying that you will have that luxury in all the roles, but in some of the roles you may have that luxury. So focus on skills. 2, what do I mean by C and A of SCAMP? So C and A for SCAMP stands for capabilities. And how do you go ahead and augment your capabilities at this point in time? So when I say what those capabilities mean, those could be marketing skills, those could be HR skills, those could be operation skills, those could be finance skills. Please make investments in building those capabilities for yourself, right? M in SCAMP stands for mindset. And you would have heard a lot about mindsets throughout. I would say go ahead, invest in the building the mindset. And that could be wherever your passion lies, right? So when I say P in the SCAMP, it's about passion. So I would say augment your capabilities, invest in building the mindset, and strengthen your abilities with your passion. And that's what I would say is the brave new world ahead of you. If you've got the SCAMP right, trust me, you prepared yourself well for the future and you'll continue to rise and shine.
Well, thank you so much, Vikas, for that perspective. And especially when you spoke about capabilities and passion, I think these are terms which all of us and everyone present here, whether it's a student or a educator or a corporate professional, should think about it as more of progressing with that learner-driven mindset and not just focused with an outcome, right? I think the process is more about learning in the journey along.
And I would say that, come to think about it, how fortunate students of this university are. This is truly a multidisciplinary university. So for you to step out of your department of management and walk across to arts and science, to walk across to economics group out there, to walk across the graduate school, which focuses on the humanitarian skills and so on and so forth, right? And think about how would you kind of go ahead and learn a few things from there and incorporate that back into your work? Or how can you start to triangulate your learning of what's happening in those schools and the skills being covered in those schools and strengthen your capabilities by virtue of that? So strongly recommend that you take advantage of it while you are here and considering the travel you have to make to city of Hyderabad to go ahead and enjoy the good world. still long time away. So, so I would say invest your time here.
For that remark. And you're also associated with non-profit organizations like the GBSN as well in their board. And the aim is to foster a network of B schools, government bodies, NGOs, and development agencies to improve the locally relevant management and the entrepreneurship education. How, in your opinion, as a corporate professional, business schools around the world have evolved post pandemic, and how can we collectively look at engaging better in the society and building that sustainability within the academic curricula?
Tough one, too many words. But that being said, I think a few things up here for you to think about. When you work for a cause, you primarily work for a cause because you are passionate about that cause. If you don't have that inner passion for being associated with a cause, it's very difficult for you to stay energized what's been offered for you to make things work. So I would say find that particular passion and say, hey, what cause you want to be associated with to begin with. And I think schools should help students appreciate how to find that particular cause. In my particular case, as much as I'm currently associated with GBSN, prior to this, I was associated with AACSB. I've been also associated for a long time with CII and NASSCOM. So I've been associated with various organizations in this particular format. My work has allowed me to stay connected with some of those causes and work on it. So I would say by virtue of my work, I've also been able to build that network, and I'm very fortunate that my organization was kind enough to allow me to do that. So my suggestion to the schools back here would be for you to think about how do you help students build their network. Now, it's easy for students to go ahead and build that particular network and say that, hey, I've been to 5 different conferences, I've attended some of that, I got exposed to ideas out there. Most of the time, where the rubber does not hit the road or does not touches the road is where students, or for that matter, the participating organization, is not in a position to see value or impact. So my suggestion to the group up here would be for you to think about how do you help students think from issue to impact. So if they are associated with a particular cause, how are they in a position to create or think through that issue deep with their recent learnings from the management education they're going through, and how they're in a position to showcase outcomes in form of the impact in real numbers. So I would say that's where it kind of really makes a difference. There's no dearth of causes to work around. I think pandemic has opened up more and more of those causes. And post-pandemic, I think in this brave new world we are living in, which is all hybrid, everybody is getting readjusted. So a great opportunity for you to think about.
Well, I think the idea of issue to impact is something which reverberates quite well, because that's something which, as educational institutions, we should be looking at. How do we help students to think through from this issue of whether it's in the area of sustainability or it's in the area of innovation, and how can we collectively think about the challenges that we are facing in the process, and that is what will actually, if you solve it with a learner mindset, you would be driven towards the outcome automatically. My next question, Vikas, is the educational institutions nowadays, and especially accreditation bodies like ACSB and EFMD, are also talking about how do we involve students in academics and make a student-centric education, right? And should they be student-centric in the first place? Because there's this widely accepted ideology that students do not know what is good for them at an early stage of their life, and especially when they graduate as well. They do not have an understanding of where they will move forward in their career. So, how do we manage this in order to create a student centric education?
Chat, I can guarantee you some of the students in the mix would have not liked this question. And the reason being, they're very clear what they want. So if you say that, no, hey, you keep me out of the mix, that's not going to work. And I'll give you two examples of it, which you kind of, as academicians, some of those case studies kind of keep coming back in your course curriculums again and again. One is centered around Apple, which said, hey, my customers don't know what to expect of me, so let me go ahead and create something which would be exciting for them. At the other end, the think about another product company, which again a case study in academia used quite a lot, is all about Kodak, which was ahead of time, knew exactly what the customers needed, but was arrogant enough to keep them in the shelf because they thought that it's too early to give it in the hands of the customers to make use of it. So my thoughts are very clearly that can you keep away a key customer of yours, which is student, which is accepting your output, and remove them out of the mix for them to think about it? Answer to that is a no. And especially when it gets down to how this particular generation is absorbing knowledge and relating it back to the issues. So your earlier question was all about working on societal causes. And it is a very important parameter for this generation to think about the choices they make with respect to organizations they work for, or the organizations they create. How is that adding up to the social impact onto it? So I would say that if you move them out of the mix, it's not working out. Two, can you kind of not seek their inputs and create your curriculums? Yes. So in this particular mix, I would say broadly for you to think about one of the papers which we have written on the future of educators in India. We spoke about 4 mindsets or 4 phases of educator. The 4 phases were, on the top, were catalyst and strategist, and the lower quadrant had steward and operator. So if you really think about these 4 aspects or 4 phases of educator, they're primarily coming in from what's the strategic education I need to provide? How do I catalyze that for students to learn the max out of it? How can I be the steward of the profession and really kind of ensure that the students have the cutting edge knowledge? And the operator is that, hey, I have created this large infrastructure. How do I ensure that it's filled up with people, the right kind of people to run the show? I would say the steward and the operator has worked very, very well. I think industry, academia, and students, and society, and government has to all come together and not just think about the steward and the operator side of the world, but truly think about the catalyst and the strategist. So strategist of thinking multidisciplinary, and catalyst being how do you create opportunities for students and the learners of tomorrow to have those experiences while they are going through the immersion of their education. So those are some of the thoughts I would share.
I think quite an interesting perspective on the catalyst and strategists and stewards and operators. I think that gives a sense of understanding on how the students' mindset should be wired in order for them to be focusing on how do they work on a multidisciplinary sort of an environment that you spoke about. With that, we come to the end of the first section, Vikas, but something which was not planned, and life is full of surprises. So we'd have the second and the last segment, which is an interesting one. Are you ready for that, Vikas?
Always ready for surprises.
So The first question, let me introduce that this is going to be a rapid fire with Vikas Gupta.
Bring it
And
on.
certain questions which maybe all of us would like to know from Vikas. We've got hold of him today at the conference, so maybe and the students would like to know more about you as well.
Sure.
We'll have to make it quick, either one word or you just have to choose an option.
Sure.
The first one, most important skill for the employees of tomorrow.
Growth mindset.
Great. Most rapidly developing industry today.
Digital.
Awesome. Localization or globalization?
Both localization for precision, globalization for vision.
You had to choose one, Vikas.
I gave you my reason for why I picked up both.
All right. So you mean to say globalization?
Glocalization, and I would say that's a combination of vision plus precision. So, yes.
That's quite a diplomatic answer. The fourth one is academic excellence or experiential learning?
Both.
Again, both is not an option because you need to choose one.
Look, I love to take sides, but in this particular case, when we speak about multidisciplinary, it cannot be one. So as much as the skills would help you become better at something what you do, I think the academic precision or academic excellence will help you think through future. So skills can be here and now, but academic excellence will help you for the future to think through a bigger picture and how you peg yourself into that.
That's a very professorial response.
Yeah, newly minted PhD, so obviously has to be. Some of that has got ingrained in me.
Well, awesome. So you mean to say that you need to be working on the experiential learning roadmap, which leads towards academic excellence.
Yes.
Right. And the last question is, what could be the biggest challenge for a new employee joining an organization?
Reinvention. And I would say it's been a lifelong journey. So your first question to me was that because you think about changing your profession. And I would say, did that thought cross my mind? It did. But when I think about it on the hindsight of it, if I would have changed my profession then, would I be where I am today? No. So I would say reinventing. And I was fortunate to got exposure to industries which allowed me to reinvent. I was fortunate enough to work with my organizations which kept giving me assignments which were not mainstream assignments. I'm very fortunate to have mentors and bosses who kept pushing me to say, hey, Vikas, not good enough. So I had a lot of Carol Dweck's telling me, Vikas, how do you go ahead and develop that growth mindset and keep working on it? So I would say reinvention.
Thank you so much, Vikas. I think this was an excellent conversation with you. There's some areas that we uncovered as part of this conversation. We see you very active in the field of HR industry per se, but then it was quite important for you to understand your perspective more on the academic side on how do you see things develop. But thank you so much for coming down to Woxsen.
Thank you, Chad. First trip, I thought worthy.
And with this, audience, we have come to the end of day one of the conference. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining in.